All right, let's get right into this explainer. Today, we are diving into something seriously chilling, a look at human intuition and those unexpected threats that are lurking exactly where we feel the most secure. You know, we spend our entire lives building these little fortresses, locked doors, familiar routines, quiet neighborhoods. It's all designed to keep the unknown at bay. But what happens when the very spaces we associate with peace and security are totally compromised? Today, we are breaking down a collection of real-life encounters that absolutely shatter the illusion of safety.
I mean, think about it. We are practically hardwired to fear the dark, the supernatural, the random bumps in the night, right? But this explainer is going to deconstruct 3 harrowing accounts that prove a deeply, deeply unsettling reality. The most dangerous things lurking in the shadows. They don't have fangs, they don't have supernatural powers. They are entirely human. We're going to look at how our brains actively try to rationalize away clear and present danger just to preserve our sense of security, and we'll see just how fragile that security truly is.
So, the illusion of safety. To really unpack this, we'll examine 3 distinct case studies of shattered security, starting out in the isolated woods, moving into the basement of a new home, and finally looking at a wealthy suburb.
All right, case 1, the isolated woods. Let's look at what happens when a peaceful rural sanctuary is completely compromised.
So our first subject is a hiker. She actually moved out to a quiet, mostly rural area to escape the hustle and bustle of the city. She establishes this nice routine, finding a private, hidden path that leads to a peaceful swamp out in some heavily wooded terrain. This is her sanctuary. She's super comfortable here, even recording these little video diaries to document how serene the hikes are. But then, that peace is broken by a classic psychological conflict, the friendly stranger versus the malicious stalker. After leaving the woods to use a public restroom, she gets approached by a guy in a black hoodie, sunglasses, and a purple hat. And the man is acting way too familiar. When his initial attempts at conversation fail, he pivots, claiming he needs help opening the hood of his red Chevy Cruze because his hands are, quote, too big. Now, our hiker's creep meter is absolutely overflowing at this point. She sees the glaring inconsistencies, like he claims to be taking her exact hiking trail but then suddenly needs her to walk in the exact opposite direction to his car. Yeah, no. She smartly uses a passing couple as a shield, basically pretending to know them, which ultimately forces the stalker to retreat to his car and drive away.
But right before he left, he delivered this absolute gem of a chilling line. "Looks like we're gonna hit the same trail." He said this after he actively followed her away from the restroom. It's basically a statement of intent, just masked as a casual coincidence. It's the verbal equivalent of testing a fence for a weakness.
Now, here's where it gets really crazy. The true horror of this whole situation was entirely delayed. The hiker thought the threat started at the public restroom. But later that night, while safely at home, she's reviewing her video diary from that peaceful swamp, and she notices something in the background. Paused right there in the frame, standing just inside the deep tree line over her shoulder, is the man in the purple hat and black hoodie. He hadn't randomly bumped into her at the restroom at all. He'd been silently hunting her through the isolated woods long before they ever spoke. That retroactive realization, knowing you were in grave danger when you felt completely at peace, is just truly terrifying.
Moving on to case 2, the basement ghost. We're shifting gears from the expansive woods to the tight, confined space of a private residence.
We've got this couple, Ron and Tina. They move into a quiet new house, but there's a catch. The previous owner actually passed away inside the home. And almost immediately, Ron and Tina start experiencing these inexplicable events. They wake up to random crashes. Furniture is slightly moved overnight. Ron's favorite Miami Dolphins coffee mug completely vanishes from the kitchen counter. But instead of assuming the logical explanation, that someone is breaking in, they rationalize it as a ghost. They lean fully into the paranormal. And why wouldn't they? A ghost is an abstract fear. A tangible home invader violating your private sanctuary? That is a much darker, much more immediate physical reality that they simply did not want to confront. They actually even started sleeping in a hotel to avoid this so-called spirit.
So, you gotta ask, was the house actually haunted? Well, a skeptical friend, who is the narrator of this specific source, decided he was going to prove to Ron and Tina that ghosts aren't real. He goes over to the house, walks through the main floors, and notices this distinct, really nasty odor. We're not talking sulfur or some demonic smell. It is a strong, pungent human body odor. He heads down into the cluttered basement, actively mocking the spirits, and pulls out his phone to record a joke selfie video for Ron, just to prove the room is completely empty. But as the narrator pans his camera around in selfie mode to show the boxes behind him, he catches movement in the corner of his screen. He lowers the phone, and sitting right there in the corner of the basement, hiding among the storage, is not a demon, but a sickly, deranged old man. And guess what?
The missing Miami Dolphins mug, a small pillow, and a blanket were all just tucked away in his hidden living space.
The immediate aftermath is just pure chaos. The narrator sprints upstairs, slams the basement door shut, and literally uses his entire body weight to hold it closed while frantically calling the cops. And on the other side of that thin wooden door, the intruder starts wailing in pain, violently trying to force the door open, just repeatedly screaming, "No, no, no." It is this frantic battle of strength that only ends when the police sirens start approaching, which causes the narrator to briefly let go of the door. The intruder busts through, screams directly in the guy's face, and escapes out the back door with deceiving speed. It leaves behind this profound lesson. A locked door means absolutely nothing if the threat is already living inside your walls.
Okay, let's jump to case 3, the neighborhood stalker. We're going to look at the illusion of safety in a supposedly secure, wealthy neighborhood.
Our subject here is an insomniac dog sitter staying over at his rich boss's house. He's up super late playing his Nintendo Switch, entirely unconcerned about his surroundings because, hey, he's in a very nice, affluent area. But over the course of a single night, the threat steadily escalates, while the victim continuously tries to just rationalize it away. At 10 p.m., while walking the dog, he sees a shadow but blames it on the dark. At 1 a.m., he goes out to get a charger from his car and he sees a figure dressed entirely in black, just standing perfectly still a few houses down. He literally rationalizes it as a neighbor looking at the stars. By 3 a.m., he hears this strange scraping noise, looks out the window and sees a person physically sprinting away from the glass. And yet he still doesn't call the police. He convinces himself that because the person ran away, he isn't in immediate danger. The next day, the boss completely dismisses these massive red flags. He insists it's just teenagers from the neighborhood behind the house pulling pranks. This perfectly demonstrates the extreme danger of rationalizing anomalies. Because they label the threat as harmless kids, the dog sitter lowers his guard entirely for the following night. But the following night, that brings the breaking point. The dog sitter spots the figure again, standing completely motionless under a streetlight across from the house, just staring. Frustrated and fully thinking it's a teenage prank, the dog sitter steps outside. He yells at the figure, announces he is recording them on his phone to show his boss, and without a single warning, the figure snaps into motion and charges him at a full-speed aggressive sprint. The victim barely makes it inside. He slams the door, locks it, and just sits paralyzed in the dining room. 10 agonizing minutes go by in total silence. Then, the doorbell rings. He doesn't move. It rings again. The handle jiggles as the stalker is actively trying to open the locked door. And then, straight through the wood, a calm, rational, completely unbothered voice simply says, "Have a good night." Just let that sink in for a second. The victim realized with absolute paralysis that an unverified, totally unexplained human threat with completely unknown intentions was kept at bay by nothing more than a simple deadbolt. This wasn't some neighborhood prank. It was a targeted terror campaign. And the wildest part is, even with the video, the police could do absolutely nothing because technically, no physical crime had been committed yet.
All right, bringing it all together. Lessons in situational awareness. Let's look at the crucial takeaways from these 3 harrowing accounts.
These survival elements are absolutely crucial. Number 1, trust your gut. The hiker knew something was off in the woods way before she ever spoke to the man. Number 2, lock your doors immediately. Whether you're out in a rural area or in a fancy, wealthy suburb, a lock was literally the only thing standing between the dog sitter and an attacker. Number 3, do not engage suspicious individuals in the dark. Challenging that stalker under the streetlight nearly cost the dog sitter his life. And finally, acknowledge reality over rationalization. Stop blaming ghosts for your missing items, and definitely stop blaming harmless teenagers for figures staring through your windows at 3 a.m.
Ultimately, what this explainer proves is that the most terrifying things in our world aren't supernatural anomalies. They are human beings. People who navigate the fringes of our society, just waiting for us to let our guard down. Which leaves us with one final, deeply unsettling thought as we wrap up today. When you feel completely safe, perfectly comfortable, and entirely alone, who is lurking in your blind spot right now?